Discipline is not what you do once, it's who you choose to become every single day. That's the truth nobody tells you. This isn't about talent. It's not about luck. It's about doing the same thing on purpose until it becomes part of your identity. This audiobook is called Daily Discipline, Choice Repeated Until You Become Unstoppable for a Reason. Because everything you want in life, your goals, your confidence, your strength, it all starts with one simple choice repeated daily. You don't need more motivation, you need a system, a direction, a reason to stop quitting on yourself. Think about how many times you've started something and then stopped. Not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't stick with the process long enough to see results. That ends here. This isn't another motivational push that fades by tomorrow. This is a new standard for your life. If you're ready to build a version of you that doesn't fall apart when it gets hard, keep listening. It starts right now. Chapter 1. Decide what matters and cut everything else today. Discipline doesn't begin when the world gives you permission. It starts the moment you decide what matters. That's where real change begins. You sit with yourself without distractions, and you get brutally honest about what actually moves your life forward and what's been holding you back. Most people avoid that moment. They stay busy with things that don't matter, they fill up their days with noise, and they convince themselves they're being productive. But there's a big difference between being busy and being serious. You don't need more things to do. You need fewer things, but the right things. What matters? That's the question you've got to answer right now, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, right now. Because life keeps moving with or without your direction. You either take control of your time or it gets taken from you. You either build your future with discipline or you destroy it with distraction. That's the choice. And it shows up in every moment. Not once a year, not once a month, every single day. Now, look around your life and start asking yourself, what are you keeping that's not helping? What habits do you repeat even though they bring you nothing? What conversations are you entertaining that go nowhere? What thoughts do you allow in your mind that pull you down instead of push you forward? That's the real work. Discipline is not about pushing yourself to do more. It's about learning what to stop doing. It's about cutting the unnecessary so the necessary can finally grow. You want to be unstoppable? You don't get there by accident. You get there by design. You sit down, you write it out, and you decide what matters. Not what sounds good, not what looks good on social media, not what other people expect. What actually matters to you. You pick that. You own it. And then you start cutting everything that doesn't serve that. That's discipline. It's painful at first, I know. Saying no is hard. Especially when you're used to saying yes to everyone and everything. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter, you are saying no to the life you actually want. Think about that. Every extra scroll on your phone, every useless argument, every time you avoid the hard task by doing an easier one, you are making a choice. And that choice has consequences. Discipline begins when you feel the urge to do what's comfortable and you choose what's right instead. When you feel the pull of distraction and you lean into focus. That's not just willpower. That's you finally being honest with yourself. Most people don't need more motivation. They need clarity. They need to stop lying to themselves about what's important. They need to stop pretending they can do everything. You can't. You don't have unlimited time. You don't have unlimited energy. But you do have control over what you choose to focus on. And that's your power. Choice. That's where discipline lives, not in big moments, but in small ones, in quiet ones, in those private decisions that nobody else sees. That's where your life is being shaped, Not when the camera's on, not when people are watching, but when you're alone and it's just you versus your old habits. That's where the fight happens. And the people who win that fight over and over, those are the ones who become unstoppable. You've got to build your day around what matters. And if it doesn't fit, cut it out. Cut it completely. Stop carrying around things that drain you. Stop giving your time to things that don't give you life. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's a gift. It's how you protect what's valuable. It's how you honor your future. But you'll never protect your future if you're too busy pleasing your present comfort. I've seen it over and over. People with talent, with dreams, with goals, but they're too scattered. They're chasing 5 things at once. They're trying to please everyone. They're halfway in and halfway out of everything they start. And they wonder why nothing changes. It's not because they're not good enough. It's because they never made a real decision. They never cut the things that don't belong. You want results? Get ruthless with your time. Get clear about your goals. Wake up and ask yourself, what matters to me right now? What action gets me closer to that? Everything else is noise. Everything else is someone else's priority. You have to stop giving your life to things that don't pay you back. That's the mistake, and that's the trap most people live in until it's too late. Discipline is not this big, dramatic thing. It's not about shouting or pushing harder. It's about saying no, quietly, firmly, consistently. It's about walking away from people who waste your time. It's about turning off the things that pull your focus. It's about building your life brick by brick, choice by choice. Every time you cut something that doesn't matter, you make room for something that does. That's how you become powerful. That's how you build confidence. That's how you stop doubting yourself, because deep down, you start trusting yourself. You know you're not playing games anymore. You know you're serious now. And when you trust your own word, you stop needing the world's approval. That's where freedom lives. Ask yourself this. What are 5 things I need to stop doing today? Not next week, today. Be honest. Look at your daily habits. Look at how you spend your mornings. Look at what you do when nobody's watching. That's your real life. And if your daily life doesn't reflect your goals don't mean anything. That's the harsh truth. People say they want success, but they live in a way that invites failure. They say they want peace, but they hold on to stress. They say they want progress, but they cling to comfort. That gap, that's where discipline comes in. Discipline closes the gap between what you say and what you do. And remember this, every single time you cut something that doesn't matter, you win. Maybe nobody sees it, maybe nobody claps for you, but you win. Because that's one less excuse, that's one less wasted day, and that's one step closer to the life you're really after. That's what discipline is. It's not about being perfect, it's about being honest, being intentional, being clear, and being consistent. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. You don't need to be more talented. You need to be more focused. And you don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You need to decide what matters and cut everything else. That's the path. That's the truth. And that's the beginning of becoming unstoppable. It starts today, with one clear choice, and then another, until the old you is gone, and the disciplined you is all that remains. Keep going. Your life is waiting. Chapter 2. Act when it's hardest, not when you feel ready. Discipline isn't supposed to feel easy. That's where most people go wrong. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel ready. They wait until their emotions line up with their intentions, but that moment rarely comes. If you live your life based on how you feel, you'll always be chasing discipline but never living it. Feelings are temporary. They rise and fall like the wind. But action, real action, that's where power lives. The moment it feels hardest to move, that's exactly when you need to move. Because discipline is built in discomfort, not in comfort. You don't grow when it's easy. You grow when it's hard, and you act anyway. Everyone wants to become stronger, but not everyone wants to do the work when they're tired, anxious, distracted, or scared. But those are the moments that shape your future, not the moments when everything feels good, not the moments when your mind is calm and your schedule is clear. It's when your back is against the wall, when nothing feels right, when you're overwhelmed and uncertain. That's when most people fold. And that's exactly where you have to act. If you wait to feel ready, you will delay every breakthrough in your life. Readiness is a lie the mind tells you to protect you from discomfort. It's a trick. It says, just a little longer, or maybe tomorrow, or I'll start once I have more clarity. But that delay is the problem. That delay becomes a pattern. That delay becomes who you are. You become the person who waits, the person who overthinks, the person who plans but never begins. That kind of life doesn't build confidence, it destroys it. You want to feel powerful? Start acting in the middle of chaos. When your thoughts are loud and your energy is low, move anyway. That's how trust is built. That's how you stop doubting yourself. You don't build self-respect by waiting until you're emotionally ready. You build it by doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Every time you take action in those difficult moments, you send a message to your own mind. I am in control here, not my feelings, not my doubts, me. That's what makes you disciplined. It's not genetics, it's not luck. It's not being born with some special mindset. It's deciding again and again to act even when it's uncomfortable, even when nobody's watching, even when everything inside you is telling you to stop. That kind of action rewires you. You become stronger because you've proven to yourself that struggle doesn't decide your direction. You do. Think about your own life. Think about how many things you've delayed, not because you didn't know what to do, but because you didn't feel ready. That workout you skipped, that hard conversation you avoided, that project you postponed. You told yourself you needed time, but the truth is you needed to act. You needed to push through the hesitation. You needed to choose discipline over comfort. The biggest shifts happen the moment you start doing what you've been avoiding. The longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. And the more you think about it, the more reasons your mind creates to justify inaction. That's why it's so important to move before your thoughts start arguing with you. You can't let hesitation become a habit, because once hesitation becomes familiar, you stop trusting yourself. You start believing your own excuses, and then you wonder why nothing is changing. So here's the truth. You will never feel perfectly ready. Life doesn't slow down to make it easier for you. The pressure doesn't disappear. The distractions don't go away. You have to learn how to act while carrying all of that. You don't get to wait for perfect conditions. You learn to move inside the storm. You learn to push through the noise. You train yourself to stop needing a perfect emotional state to take a productive step. Every time you act when it's hardest, you build something. Maybe it's momentum, maybe it's resilience, maybe it's confidence, but you're building. And that's all that matters. Don't measure your day by how good you felt. Measure it by what you did anyway. That's the real scoreboard. That's the version of you that becomes unstoppable, not the version that waits for motivation, but the one who builds it through action. If you're tired, act anyway. If you're scared, act anyway. If you're unsure, Act anyway, because on the other side of that hesitation is growth. On the other side is a new standard for yourself. But you won't get there by waiting. You get there by doing what needs to be done when it's the last thing you want to do. That's what separates winners from everyone else. There are people with less talent than you, less opportunity than you, less support than you, and they're still winning, not because they had better conditions, but because they acted in worse conditions. They didn't wait for the timing to feel right. They created their momentum by doing the hard things first. That's what you have to train yourself to do. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself into burnout. It's about training your mind to act without needing to feel perfect. Because your emotions will lie to you. They'll tell you to stay comfortable. They'll tell you it's not the right moment. But discipline is about showing your emotions that they don't run the show. You do. Your purpose runs the show. Your goals run the show, not how you feel in the moment. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. But what's worse, being uncomfortable for a moment or being stuck for years? You already know the answer. Comfort now costs you later, but discipline now gives you freedom later. That's the trade. You've got to choose discomfort today if you want peace tomorrow. You've got to choose action today if you want results tomorrow. And you've got to choose growth today if you want power tomorrow. You won't always want to show up. You won't always feel inspired. And that's okay. Because you're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to be real. You're trying to build something solid. And solid things are built in hard conditions, not easy ones. If you're tired of starting over, then stop quitting when it's hard. Stop quitting when it's boring. Stop quitting when it's inconvenient. That's how you win. By refusing to quit just because you don't feel great. Every day won't be your best. But if you still act, you're still winning. Because most people quit at the first sign of struggle. Most people slow down when they hit resistance. But that resistance is your opportunity. That's where you separate yourself. That's where you grow. Start seeing hard moments as a test. The punishment. A test. A test of who you really are. Are you someone who only acts when it's easy, or are you someone who pushes forward when it's hard? That answer defines your future, not your plans, not your dreams, your response to difficulty. That's what shapes everything. And remember, it's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something right now. One task, one step, one action, not later. Not when it feels good. Now. Because now is all you have. The moment you choose action over hesitation, you take back control. And the more times you do it, the more it becomes who you are. You don't have to wait until the fear is gone. You don't have to wait until your confidence is high. You just have to move. You just have to act. And once you do, momentum takes over. Doubt fades, strength rises, discipline builds. But none of that happens if you don't move when it's hard. That's the moment that matters most, the one where every part of you says, "Not today," and you move anyway. That's where champions are built. That's where leaders are made. And that's where your new life begins. Not when it's easy, not when you feel ready, but when it's hardest, and you act anyway.
Chapter 3. Do it scared, because waiting won't remove fear. Fear doesn't disappear just because you give it time. It doesn't shrink when you hide from it. It grows. It builds roots in your mind the longer you let it sit. Waiting never makes fear go away. It gives it more power. If you want to break through it, you've got to take action while fear is still present. That's the only way. You don't wait for the fear to pass. You walk forward with it still in your chest, still in your throat, still in your mind, and you move anyway. That's how courage is built, not in comfort, but in confrontation. You face it directly by doing the exact thing your fear is trying to keep you from doing. Most people think courage means feeling strong and confident before taking a step, but that's not how it works. Real courage shows up when everything inside you says, stay back, and you take the first step anyway. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's proof that you're no longer living under fear's rules. You've decided that growth matters more than being comfortable. That's a turning point, and it only happens when you stop waiting to feel safe and start acting even while you're scared. You might be afraid of failing, of being judged, of looking foolish, of not being good enough. That fear feels real, and it is. But so is the opportunity on the other side of it. You'll never find out who you could be if you keep avoiding everything that scares you. The truth is, fear isn't your enemy. It's a signal. It's showing you where your limits are. And if you can push through that moment, you start to stretch those limits. That's what builds mental toughness, not hiding, not avoiding, but facing the thing that shakes you and doing it anyway. You don't need to be fearless to make progress. You need to stop waiting for perfect timing and just begin. The first time you do something that scares you, it might not feel good. You might shake, you might stumble, but you'll walk away with something more important than comfort. You'll walk away with proof. Proof that you can act under pressure, that you can do things without needing to feel completely ready, that you can move forward even with fear sitting right beside you, and that kind of proof changes everything. It's how you start to trust yourself again. If you keep waiting for fear to disappear before you take action, you'll keep your life small. Fear is always going to be part of the process, but it doesn't get to make your decisions. Not anymore. You've spent enough time letting it talk you out of opportunities, enough time letting it hold you back from difficult conversations, enough time using it as a reason to stay where you are. Growth requires risk, and risk often comes with fear. But that doesn't mean you don't move. It means you train yourself to move anyway. People waste years waiting for the fear to shrink. They tell themselves they'll start next week, or next month, or when things calm down. But things rarely calm down. And even if they do, the fear remains. Because fear isn't about timing, it's about identity. If you see yourself as someone who avoids discomfort, then fear will always dominate your choices. But the moment you act in fear, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop seeing yourself as weak. You start seeing yourself as someone who takes responsibility even when it's scary. That shift is everything. Doing it scared doesn't mean rushing in recklessly. It means being honest, that fear is present, but refusing to let it paralyze you. It means taking thoughtful action even when your heart is racing. It means making progress while you're uncomfortable. That's real strength. That's the kind of discipline that doesn't fade when life gets tough. It becomes your foundation, and once you have that, you can take on anything. Not because you never feel fear, but because fear doesn't stop you anymore. Fear isn't proof that something is wrong. It's often a sign you're stepping into something meaningful. It shows up when the stakes are real. That conversation you've avoided for months. That project you've been sitting on. That change you know you need to make. It all triggers fear because it matters. But the presence of fear doesn't mean stop. It means step up. The only way you shrink fear is by walking through it, not around it. You can't think your way out of fear. You can't logic it away. You have to. Action is what breaks the cycle. Every time you move forward while scared, fear loses its grip. It might still whisper, but it no longer controls your behavior. And when you stack those moments, one after another, you build a different kind of confidence. One that doesn't rely on feeling good. One that doesn't depend on outside validation. It comes from within. From knowing you faced something difficult and didn't run from it. Fear wants you to stay quiet, to stay hidden, to stay the same. But you weren't meant to live small. You weren't meant to live stuck. You've got something in you that fear is trying to cover up, and it's your job to uncover it, not by wishing, not by waiting, but by doing the things that scare you. Because on the other side of fear is freedom. Not the kind you talk about, the kind you feel. When you act in fear and survive it, you walk taller. You stop second-guessing every move. You stop needing approval. You start trusting your own voice again. You don't need to be completely fearless to begin something. You just need to care more about your future than your comfort. That's where the shift happens. When what you want becomes more important than the fear that tries to block it, that's when you start taking risks. That's when you stop playing safe. And that's when your life starts to change. The longer you avoid fear, the more control it has over you. But the moment you do something while scared, you weaken that control. That first step is the most important, not because it's perfect, but because it's proof that fear doesn't win. And once you have that proof, you start doing more. You speak up when you used to stay silent. You take chances you used to avoid. You live differently. Not because fear is gone, but because you've changed your response to it. And it doesn't have to be a huge step. Sometimes doing it scared means getting out of bed when you feel frozen. Making that phone call when your stomach is tight. Sending that message when your hands shake. That's what builds grit. That's what builds courage. You don't become unstoppable by staying comfortable. You become unstoppable by doing the hard things, while fear is right there with you. If fear still shows up in your life, it means you're doing something worthwhile. It means you're stepping beyond what's familiar. And that's something to be proud of. Most people never do. Most people choose the path that doesn't scare them. But that path also doesn't grow them. It keeps them in a loop of regret. Always wondering what would have happened if they had acted sooner. You don't have to be like them. You can choose something different. You can choose to feel the fear and do it anyway. You can choose to show up even when it feels risky. You can choose to build the kind of life that's not controlled by hesitation. And that kind of life begins with one decision. I won't wait anymore. I won't put my life on hold just because I feel scared. I will act. And I will keep acting. That decision changes you. It builds a new identity, one rooted in strength, not fear. One rooted in action, not delay. And once that identity is strong, everything in your life starts to shift. You stop needing permission. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop needing to have it all figured out, because now you're not waiting to feel ready. You're doing it scared, and that's where your power comes from. Not in the absence of fear, but in your refusal to let fear stop you. Chapter 4. Build self-respect by keeping promises to yourself daily. The foundation of self-respect isn't built on what you say to others. It's built on what you do when no one's watching. Every time you say you'll do something and you actually do it, you grow stronger. And every time you break your word to yourself, even in the smallest ways, you chip away at your own belief. You might not notice it right away, but over time, those little broken promises stack up. They turn into doubt. They turn into frustration. They make you question your own ability to follow through. That's why self-respect is built one day at a time, one small promise at a time. It doesn't take big moments to earn your own respect. It takes consistency. You decide what matters to you, and then you back it up with action every day, even when it's inconvenient. Even when you're tired. even when nobody else knows what you committed to. That's the real test. Because anyone can say they're disciplined when it's easy, but can you be the kind of person who follows through when nobody's watching? That's where the growth happens. That's where your confidence comes from. From being someone who means what they say and proves it with action. When you wake up and follow through on the things you told yourself you'd do, you don't just complete a task, you send a message to your own mind. You're saying, I can count on me, and that message is powerful. Because the way you see yourself begins to shift. You stop questioning if you have what it takes. You stop second-guessing your potential. You begin to act like someone who's trustworthy, not to others, but to yourself. That's the version of you that takes control. That's the version of you that stops making excuses. Think about how often people break promises to themselves. They say they'll eat better, but they don't. They say they'll stop procrastinating, but they delay again. They say they'll take care of their body, their goals, their mindset. But it doesn't happen, not because they're not capable, but because they haven't trained themselves to treat their own word with respect. They treat commitments to others as sacred, but their own word gets pushed to the side. That's backwards. Your word to yourself should matter most. Because if you can't trust you, nothing else works. You want to feel proud of who you are. Keep your word, even in the smallest things. If you say you'll get up at a certain time, then get up. If you say you'll work on something for an hour, then work. Not because it's easy, but because your self-respect depends on it. And every time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that your voice matters. You stop needing motivation, you stop needing reminders, because now, doing what you said becomes part of who you are. This kind of discipline doesn't require talent. It requires honesty. It's about being clear with yourself, what you will do, when you'll do it, and then doing it without debate. That's how strong people are built, not through motivation or hype, through quiet decisions. Through daily effort, through honoring your own word even when no one else sees it. That's how you become solid inside. That's how you stop feeling like a fraud. You start becoming the person you promised yourself you'd be. Most people struggle with self-respect because they've spent years abandoning their own goals. They've talked themselves out of what matters, and the only way to fix that is to start small. Make one promise today, not 10. Just one. Something manageable. And then keep it no matter what. When it gets hard, you keep going. When it gets boring, you keep going. When it feels pointless, you keep going. Because this isn't about the result. It's about rebuilding trust with yourself. The fastest way to destroy your confidence is to keep lying to yourself. Saying you'll change, but staying the same. Saying you'll act, but staying still. Every broken promise becomes another reason to doubt yourself. And once that doubt takes root, everything feels harder. That's why the solution is simple. Stop saying things you don't mean, and start doing the things you say. Cut out the fluff. Get real. Start showing up. Start delivering. To you, not to anyone else. You don't need to explain your goals to others. You don't need to post about your discipline online. What matters is what you do when you're alone. That's when your character is revealed. Do you hit snooze again? Do you skip the gym? Do you avoid the work? Or do you honor the commitments that only you know about? That's what defines you. The standard you hold for yourself when nobody else is involved. Raise that standard, and your life will follow. And it's not about perfection. You're going to make mistakes. That's part of the process. But the key is not to lie to yourself about those mistakes. Own them, fix them, and then move forward stronger. Don't cover them up. Don't justify them. Just be real. Being honest with yourself is where strength begins. Because when you know you're being honest, your confidence grows. You stop needing outside validation because you're building something stronger on the inside. Keeping promises to yourself is uncomfortable, but so is living a life where you don't trust your own word. So choose your discomfort wisely. You can either feel the temporary discomfort of discipline or the long-term regret of inconsistency. That's the trade. And only one of those leads to peace. Only one of those builds pride. Only one of those makes you feel grounded. That's the one you need to choose. And when you start stacking those kept promises, something changes. You walk differently. You speak with more clarity. You stop seeking approval. Because now you've got evidence. You've built something that no one can take away. And that's your daily record. Your pattern of showing up, doing the work, and delivering on your word. That's what creates a real sense of worth. Not hype, not words. Proof. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to start. And once you start, you don't stop. Even if the progress is slow, even if no one notices, you keep going. Because this is about you building a new identity. One decision at a time. One promise at a time. You hold yourself to a higher standard, not because you have to, but because you want to live with integrity. That's where pride lives. That's where peace begins. Start by making your word unshakable. If you say it, do it. If you commit, follow through. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's tiring. Especially then. Because every time you do, you're telling yourself, I matter. And that belief, that you matter, is what fuels every great life. Not arrogance, not ego, self-respect. And it only comes from doing the hard things when you say you will. This is how you build a disciplined life. Not from outside pressure, but from inside conviction. You know your priorities. You know your goals. And you back them with consistent action. That kind of discipline makes you dependable. It makes you clear, and it makes you proud of who you are. Not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent. That's how respect is earned. That's how peace is built. And that's how your life starts to change. One kept promise at a time.
Chapter 5. Choose discipline over feeling good in the moment. Discipline doesn't feel good in the moment. That's the truth most people avoid. It's not exciting. It's not fun. It doesn't give you a quick reward. It demands effort when your body wants rest. It calls for focus when your mind wants escape. And still, it's the only path that leads to a life you can truly be proud of. Because feeling good in the moment is temporary. It fades fast. But discipline builds something solid, something that lasts. When you choose discipline, you're investing in who you want to become, not just what feels nice right now. We live in a time where everything is built around feeling good fast. You can order food without moving, watch endless videos without thinking, talk without listening, avoid problems with a distraction. But none of those things make you stronger. None of them move you forward. They just fill the time and give you a fake sense of peace. And when that fake peace fades, you're left with the same problems you avoided. That's the trap. The comfort is temporary, but the consequences are not. Discipline means choosing what's necessary over what's easy. It means saying no to quick relief so you can earn real result. It means taking the hard road. Not because you enjoy pain, but because you've accepted that shortcuts steal more than they give. The truth is, the people who win long-term are not the ones chasing comfort. They're the ones who choose what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's boring, even when it's inconvenient. That's what separates average from excellent. The problem is, most people build their life around avoiding discomfort. They eat when they feel stress, scroll when they feel bored, complain when they feel tired. They've trained themselves to soothe every hard feeling with something easy, and that habit becomes dangerous
Because the more you chase comfort, the harder it gets to stay focused. The harder it gets to finish what you start. The harder it gets to believe in your own strength. Because every time you choose easy, you're telling yourself, I can't handle hard. That's the lie discipline breaks. When you choose discipline over comfort, you prove to yourself that you can handle hard things. You don't need to feel amazing to take action. You don't need to feel motivated to keep going. You just decide that your long-term goals matter more than short-term pleasure. And when you start living that way, your mindset changes. You don't panic when things get tough. You don't collapse when you're uncomfortable. You keep moving because you know where you're going. It starts with the small things. Waking up when the alarm rings instead of hitting snooze. Eating what fuels you instead of what numbs you. Doing the work when no one is watching. Saying no to the thing that gives you relief right now, so you can make space for something better later. These are the moments that shape your future. Not the big dramatic days. The quiet, ordinary ones. The ones where you have every reason to quit and you don't. Discipline requires honesty. You have to ask yourself, am I choosing this because it helps me, or because it's easier? That's a question most avoid, because they already know the answer. They don't want to admit that their habits are built around escape. But if you want to build a different life, you've got to call it out. You've got to get real about the way you make decisions. Every moment you say yes to comfort, you say no to growth. And eventually, that becomes who you are, a person who gives in. But you don't have to stay that way. You can change. You can start making different choices, one at a time. You can stop chasing what feels good and start chasing what builds character. And it won't always feel exciting. In fact, most of the time, it won't. Discipline isn't about feeling, it's about commitment. It's about doing the work even when the excitement is gone, even when the reward isn't immediate, even when nobody sees the effort. You train yourself to keep showing up, not because it feels good, but because it's who you've decided to be. And the more you do that, the stronger you become. You stop reacting to every emotion. You stop needing constant motivation. You stop breaking your own standards. Because now you live by choice, not by mood. There's a different kind of pride that comes from discipline. Not the kind you talk about, the kind you feel deep down. When you finish what you said you'd do. When you say no to what's easy, because you respect yourself too much to go backwards. That pride builds a different level of peace. A peace that doesn't come from comfort, but from clarity. You're no longer pulled in 100 directions. You know what matters, and you follow through. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest with yourself. Catching the moments where you feel like giving in, and choosing better. Not because it's fun, but because it's aligned with your vision. Because 5 minutes of ease can't compare to a life of purpose. That's the trade, and if you don't make that trade daily, you end up living a life that looks full but feels empty. We all know what it feels like to choose comfort and regret it later. To give in to the urge and feel worse afterwards. That's the cycle that discipline breaks. It says, I know this doesn't feel great now, but I know where it leads. And that awareness is powerful. It allows you to step back and act from your future, not your feelings. That's the kind of decision-making that builds momentum. Discipline doesn't remove all the emotion, but it gives you a tool to move through it. You don't need to feel amazing to take a step. You need to care more about who you're becoming than how you feel right now. That shift rewires your life. It simplifies your focus. It makes every decision clear. Because now the question isn't what feels good, it's what moves me forward. You won't always get it right. You'll slip. You'll give in sometimes. But if you catch it, own it, and adjust, you grow. That's what matters. Not perfection. Progress. And that progress comes from repetition, from choosing discipline over ease again and again. until it becomes second nature, until it becomes your identity. That's when things get real, when you no longer have to force discipline, because it's who you are. The world will always give you options to quit. It'll always offer shortcut. It'll always put comfort within reach. But that comfort comes at a price. It costs you confidence. It costs you momentum. It costs you the version of you that's still waiting to be built. You don't have to accept that cost. You can choose differently. You can say not this time. And that small decision over and over is what separates those who grow from those who stay the same. Discipline isn't about sacrificing everything. It's about choosing what matters most. It's about realizing that not every urge needs a reaction. Not every feeling needs to be fed. You can pause, you can think, you can choose. And that's where freedom comes from. Not from doing whatever you want, but from knowing you can control what you do. The people you admire didn't get there by doing what felt good in the moment. They got there by doing what was necessary, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. That's the mindset you build through discipline. A mindset that doesn't flinch, that doesn't fold, that doesn't chase temporary pleasure at the expense of long-term peace. And the best part, it's a skill. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build. One choice at a time. One skipped excuse. One finished task. It adds up. And before you know it, you're no longer the person who breaks promises to themselves. You're someone who follows through, who does the hard thing, who lives with direction. And once you taste that kind of progress, you won't want to go back. You're going to have moments where your feelings scream louder than your vision. When the day feels long and quitting feels easier. But that's the exact moment you've been training for. That's the moment that matters most. Not how you feel, but what you do. That's the real scoreboard. That's the real work. Choosing discipline over the easy escape. Again and again. Until the life you've been waiting for isn't a dream. It's your reality. Built by your choices, earned by your discipline. Strengthened by your ability to do what's right. Not just what feels good.
Chapter 6. Keep showing up long after motivation has disappeared. The truth about growth is simple. It doesn't depend on motivation. It depends on consistency. Anyone can take action when they feel inspired. Anyone can show up when energy is high and the mood is right. But that's not what creates lasting results. What changes your life is what you do when you don't feel like doing anything. The days when the excitement fades, when your body feels tired, when your mind starts creating reasons to stop, those are the days that matter most. Because when motivation disappears, your discipline steps in, and if you haven't trained yourself to show up regardless of your feelings, you'll keep starting over, again and again, always chasing the next wave of motivation without ever making real progress. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. You can't control it. Sometimes it shows up strong, and sometimes it's nowhere to be found. If your actions are tied to how motivated you feel, you've already limited your potential. You're building your future on something unreliable, and that's why most people stay stuck. They're great at starting. They have big goals, big dreams, but when the initial rush wears off, they slow down. They skip one day, then two. They say they'll get back to it, but they don't. Because the habit never got built. The discipline never got rooted. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel hyped. You just need to show up, even when it's boring. Even when progress feels invisible. Even when your mind tells you that it's not working. That's the discipline that builds something real. It's not loud. It's not glamorous. It's quiet repetition. It's choosing to do the work when nobody claps, when nobody notices, when nobody is pushing you. That's where your foundation gets built. Real growth doesn't happen on your best days.
It happens on your hardest days, when everything in you wants to stop, but you don't. When the feeling is gone, but the action stays. That's when you start proving something to yourself. You start realizing that you can be consistent even when conditions aren't ideal. You stop needing perfect circumstances to move forward, and that's where confidence begins. Confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from knowing that you can rely on yourself no matter what. Every time you show up without motivation, you teach yourself that feelings don't control you, that you can work through resistance, that you can stay on track even when it's uncomfortable. Those moments are the ones that separate people who change their lives from those who stay in the same place year after year. Because discipline is a decision, not a mood. It's a habit built by choice, not by chance. Think about how many people start strong. They buy the books, set the goals, make the plans, and for a few days, maybe a few weeks, they're consistent, but eventually, the newness wears off. The progress feels slow, and the excuses start coming. I don't feel it today. I'll double up tomorrow. I just need a break. Those excuses feel harmless in the moment, but they create distance. Distance from your habits, distance from your progress, and eventually, distance from your identity. Because once you stop showing up, even for a short time, it becomes easier to stop again. You lose the rhythm, you lose the structure. You start thinking you need to wait until motivation comes back. But that's not the answer. Waiting is not the solution. Action is. Repetition is. The more often you show up, especially when it's hard, the easier it becomes to keep showing up. You build a rhythm that keeps you anchored when your emotions are unstable. You've got to decide what kind of person you want to be. The kind who only works when it feels good, or the kind who works because they've committed to something bigger than comfort. That choice defines your future. You can't expect long-term results with short-term effort. You can't build discipline if you only act when conditions are perfect. You've got to be the kind of person who shows up no matter how you feel. And that doesn't mean pushing through burnout or ignoring your limits. It means honoring your commitments. It means doing something even when it's less than perfect. It means keeping the habit alive, even if the intensity is low, because missing one day can quickly become missing a week. And once the habit dies, you start from scratch. But when you stay consistent, even in small ways, you keep the momentum alive. One of the most powerful things you can do is show up on a day when everything in you wants to quit. That moment is more important than the days you feel unstoppable, because that's the moment where identity is shaped. You stop being someone who tries. You become someone who finishes, and that shift will follow you into every part of your life. Your mindset changes, your actions change, your results change. You've got to build a relationship with the process, not with the results, not with the feeling, but with the process itself. You've got to learn to respect the act of showing up as the win, because sometimes that's all you can control. Some days you won't perform at your best. Some days will feel off. But if you still show up, you're keeping the standard alive. And that standard is what makes you unshakable. You won't always feel like working. That's guaranteed. But you always have the power to choose discipline over delay, to take a small step instead of standing still, to follow through instead of backing out. And those choices add up, day after day. They build strength where there used to be weakness. They build belief where there used to be doubt. And before you know it, showing up becomes automatic. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. Motivation might get you started, but it's your standards that keep you moving. When motivation fades, and it always does, your habits take over. So build strong habits. Build a system that doesn't depend on how you feel. Build a schedule that reminds you who you're becoming, and stick to it. Not because it's easy, Not because it's fun, but because it's worth it. This is what separates the few from the many. Most people live their lives waiting to feel like doing the work. They waste years in cycles of starting and stopping. But the few, the ones who rise, the ones who build something real, they keep showing up. They do the work when it's hard. They push when it's silent. They act without needing a reason beyond the fact that they said they would. That's the kind of power you want. Power that isn't based on emotion. Power that isn't dependent on someone cheering you on. Power that comes from knowing you've made a promise to yourself, and you're keeping it, no matter what. Even when the motivation disappears, especially then, because that's when it counts. So the next time you don't feel like doing the thing you said you would do, stop and ask yourself, who do I want to become? Who am I training myself to be right now? And if the answer is strong, focused, disciplined, then act like it. Don't wait for the feeling. Create it. Build it, one decision at a time. You're not going to feel fired up every morning. You're not going to wake up with fire in your chest every day. But you don't need to. All you need is the choice to keep going. The decision to follow through. And that decision, repeated enough times, will carry you further than any feeling ever could. That's how you create a life that lasts. One day at a time, one action at a time. Showing up, always showing up, even when the fire is gone, even when the spark is low, because your purpose is still there, and your commitment still stands. That's what makes you unstoppable.
Chapter 7. Fix your routine before it ruins your mindset. Your routine is either building your mindset or breaking it. Every day, from the moment you wake up, you're either taking control of your mind or handing it over to habits that drain you. And most people don't realize this until their mindset is already falling apart. They feel unmotivated, unfocused, tired all the time, but they don't trace it back to their daily routine. They think they need more inspiration or better strategies, but what they really need is structure. Because without a strong routine, your energy gets scattered, your thinking gets weak, and your mind becomes reactive instead of intentional. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. One great day won't fix 5 lazy ones. One productive hour won't erase 8 wasted ones. Your results are tied to what you consistently do, not what you occasionally try. That's why your routine holds more power than you think. The first hour of your day can either sharpen your focus or leave you chasing your thoughts for the rest of the day. The last hour of your night can either prepare your mind for rest or flood it with noise that steals your sleep and poisons your mood. It's easy to underestimate your routine because it feels familiar. It doesn't seem like a big deal to scroll for an extra 30 minutes. It doesn't seem urgent to sleep a little later. It doesn't feel harmful to skip your morning planning or start the day with distractions. But those decisions repeat, and over time they pile up. They start to change how you see yourself. They impact your energy. They shape your discipline. And once your routine becomes unstable, your mindset follows. You feel off and you don't know why. It's not a mystery. It's your habits, your patterns, your structure, or the lack of it. Your routine should work for you, not against you. It should protect your priorities, not compete with them. It should support your goals, not sabotage them. And if it doesn't, then it's time to fix it. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a better one than what's keeping you stuck. If your mornings are rushed and chaotic, change that. Wake up earlier. Set up your day before the noise starts. If your nights are filled with things that drain you, shut them down. Create a time to unplug. Build a rhythm that gives your mind room to breathe. Discipline becomes easier when your routine makes it hard to fail. The less you leave to chance, the more control you gain. And control gives you confidence. If your days are unstructured, your thinking will be scattered. If your time has no direction, your focus won't have one either. But once you start taking your routine seriously, things begin to shift.
You start waking up with clarity instead of confusion. You start moving with purpose instead of pressure. That doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of choosing your habits carefully, one at a time. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight, but you do need to start being honest. What part of your routine is hurting you? What time of day are you the most distracted? Where do you waste the most time? What habits leave you feeling drained instead of stronger? You know the answers. You don't need more research. You need to take ownership. If you don't control your day will control you. And the more that happens, the more frustrated you'll feel. You'll start blaming things outside of you when the real problem lives inside your schedule. People often wait until they're completely overwhelmed to make changes. They wait until they've lost all motivation, until their sleep is broken, their energy is gone, and their mind feels cluttered. But you don't have to wait for things to get worse. You can make changes now. Fix the routine before it ruins your mindset. Don't ignore the small problems, because small problems left unchecked become big ones. That's how burnout starts. That's how you lose momentum. That's how you start doubting yourself. You need a routine that protects your peace. A schedule that works for your brain, not against it. This isn't about becoming robotic. It's about becoming intentional. You're not trying to live a rigid life. You're trying to live a focused one. There's a big difference. Structure creates freedom. The more predictable your actions, the more room your mind has to think clearly. Chaos in your day creates chaos in your thinking. But when your day is anchored with purpose, your mind feels safe to focus. And when your mind feels safe, you become sharper, calmer, stronger. A good routine doesn't just help you get more done. It changes how you think about yourself. It builds trust. You start believing in your ability to follow through. You stop relying on emotion to take action. That kind of trust doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what you repeat. It comes from seeing yourself stick to the plan, even when it's hard, even when you're tired. That consistency creates identity. You stop calling yourself lazy. You stop saying you're unmotivated, because now you've built proof that you can show up and stay focused. If you're serious about personal growth, your routine can't be random. You can't wake up each day hoping to feel productive. You need to set up your environment to win. Set time for work. Set time for rest. Set time for reflection. These aren't small things. These are the things that hold your mindset together when life gets hard. Because when stress shows up, when setbacks happen, it's your routine that keeps you grounded. It's your habits that carry you. Not motivation. Not good intentions. Habit, repetition, structure. Think about what your routine is teaching your brain. Are you starting your day with control or with chaos? Are you ending it with purpose or with distraction? Are you making space for deep focus or filling your time with things that don't matter? Every habit leaves a mark. Every action tells your brain what to expect. And the more you train your mind to work with you, the less you'll feel like you're constantly fighting against yourself. If you want peace, you have to earn it with discipline. If you want clarity, you have to create space for it. If you want progress, you have to organize your actions. That's what a strong routine does. It supports your goals without draining your mind. And you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to start adjusting the parts that are clearly broken. If your nights keep ruining your mornings, fix your nights. If your mornings leave you feeling rushed, fix your mornings. One change at a time. You won't always feel like sticking to the plan. That's expected. But you can still stick to it, because discipline is not about always wanting to do the right thing. It's about doing it anyway. And once your routine becomes consistent, that discipline becomes natural. You stop forcing it. You start living it. No more waiting for the perfect plan. No more convincing yourself that structure is boring. Living without structure is what's exhausting. Living on autopilot is what's draining. Every day that your routine works against you is a day that pulls you further from your goals. You don't get stronger by hoping your day works out. You get stronger by designing it to support your growth. The way you live every day is the way your mind starts thinking. That's why your routine matters. It's not just about time. It's about identity. You can change how you see yourself by changing what you do with your time. You can shift your mindset by shifting your structure. And once that structure supports your priorities, everything starts to feel more possible, more organized, more powerful. You don't need a perfect system. You need a simple one that works. You need consistency. You need ownership. You need the willingness to say, this part of my day is broken, and I'm going to fix it. That kind of honesty is what leads to real change. No more blaming distractions. No more hiding behind bad habits. If your mindset matters, then your routine needs to reflect that. So step back, look at your days. Audit your time. Be ruthless about what's helping you and what's hurting you. Then start cutting. Start adjusting. Start building something better. 1 hour at a time. One habit at a time. One day at a time. Fix your routine now before it steals your focus, your peace and your momentum. Because once your days get stronger, your mind follows. And when your mind is clear, your potential becomes real. Chapter 8. Prove to yourself that you can be consistent. Nothing changes in your life until you prove to yourself that you can stay consistent. Not once, not twice, daily, over time. When it's easy and when it's not, when you're excited and when you're drained, that's when it counts. That's what makes the difference. Because talk is cheap. Starting is easy. It's sticking with it, especially when no one's watching, that shapes who you are, and you don't do it to impress others. You do it because you're tired of being the person who quits halfway. You do it because you know deep down that until you show yourself you can keep going, nothing real is going to stick. Consistency is not about being extreme for a short time. It's about being solid every day in small ways. That's what builds progress. That's what creates real momentum. But the biggest mistake people make is thinking they need to feel ready or motivated before they act. No. What you need is a reason, a clear reason that drives you to keep showing up, especially when it gets boring or uncomfortable. You build self-respect through repetition. Every time you follow through on your plan, even in a small way, you reinforce to your mind that you can be trusted. Without consistency, your goals just stay ideas. They don't become part of your life. You get excited for a few days, maybe a week. But as soon as it gets tough, you pause, you skip a day, then two. Before long the habit is gone, and you're back to where you started. That's the cycle most people live in. Start, again, give up. And every time you repeat that cycle, you quietly lose confidence. You begin to believe that you're not capable of lasting change. That belief eats away at you. It makes you cautious. It keeps you small. And the only way to break it is by proving it wrong. You don't need anyone else to believe in you. You need to believe in you. And belief doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from evidence. You can't just say you're disciplined. You have to live like it. You have to show up on the days when it's raining, when you're tired, when you don't feel like it, because every one of those days adds weight to your progress. You stack wins. You collect proof. You build a new identity based on actions, not hopes. There's no shortcut to being consistent. You either show up or you don't. And when you show up, even for 10 minutes, even with low energy, even without results, you're sending a message to your mind. This is who I am now, This is how I live. I don't quit when it gets boring. I don't wait until it's easy. I do what I said I would do. That quiet discipline builds something inside you that no outside validation ever could. Nobody becomes great overnight. You already know, but what people forget is that greatness doesn't come from big moments. It comes from ordinary ones repeated consistently. It's in the choices you make when no one is around. It's in the standards you set and stick to. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be reliable. Consistency doesn't require intensity. It requires honesty. Show up. Do what matters. Leave the excuses behind. It doesn't matter how long you've struggled. You can still become consistent. You just need to stop trying to do everything at once. Start with one thing, one daily action. Keep it simple. Make it real. Don't set yourself up to fail with unrealistic expectations. Make a promise to yourself that you know you can keep, and then keep it. That alone starts to shift your identity. You're no longer the person who hopes. You're the person who executes. And when you see that happening, it becomes easier to stack more wins. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to make progress without starting over all the time. And to do that, you've got to build rhythm. You've got to keep showing up until it feels normal, until it's part of you. That's when things start to shift. When doing the work becomes less of a debate and more of a decision. You don't think about it. You don't overanalyze it. You just do it because it's who you are now. Your results in life don't come from what you do once. They come from what you do daily. That's why you've got to protect your consistency like it's your reputation. Because it is. Your future is built on your pattern. If your pattern is strong, your life will be strong. But if your pattern is weak, your progress will be shaky. And you'll feel it. In your energy, in your confidence, in the way you talk to yourself. That's why this matters more than you think. You don't need more time. You don't need more tools. You need to be consistent with what you already have. There's power in simplicity. You wake up. You do what needs to be done. You close your day, knowing you moved forward. Not because it was exciting, but because you said you would. That's the muscle you build. That's the mindset that grows. One day at a time. If your life feels unstable, check your consistency. If your mind feels messy, check your routine. If your confidence feels low, check your follow-through. It always comes back to what you're doing every day. That's the mirror. That's the truth. And you don't need to fix it all today. You just need to take the next step. The one you've been avoiding. The one that proves you're not going to keep living the same way. Stop chasing fast results. Start chasing daily proof. If you want to feel proud, don't look at how far you have to go. Look at the one thing you can control today. Can you stick to your word? Can you show up even when you're not in the mood? Can you choose progress instead of excuses? If the answer is yes, then you're already winning. Because that's what builds consistency. Not talk, not theory. Action. It's going to be boring sometimes. That's normal. Don't quit just because it doesn't feel exciting. That's not how discipline works. You don't need it to feel exciting. You need it to feel right. You need it to feel aligned with who you want to become. And if that's clear to you, the boredom won't stop you. You'll keep going, because the payoff isn't just the results. It's the way you feel about yourself when you know you didn't fold under pressure. Consistency is about trust. Trust in your system. Trust in your habits. Trust in your ability to keep showing up. And the only way to earn that trust is through repetition. Not once, not for a week. Daily. Over time. You prove to yourself that you're not the same person who used to quit. You're not the same person who used to break promises. You're solid now. Because you worked for it. Because you earned it. So if you're looking for change, don't look for motivation. Don't look for hacks. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, what can I do today to prove I'm consistent? What's one action that shows I take this seriously? And then do it. Don't talk about it. Don't wait for the mood. Just do it. And when you wake up tomorrow, do it again and again until the version of you who used to stop is gone. And the version of you who finishes, who keeps going, that's the one who stays. That's the one who wins.
Chapter 9. Push through boredom without chasing easy distractions again. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a signal to keep going. It shows up when things get repetitive, when progress feels slow, when the excitement fades. And that's where most people lose. They confuse boredom with failure. They think that if they're not entertained, if they're not constantly stimulated, then something must be wrong. But nothing's wrong. That's just how real progress looks. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's often unexciting. But that's where strength is built. Not in the thrill of a new start, but in the discipline of showing up again and again and again, especially when your mind starts searching for something easier. The brain is wired to avoid discomfort and chase stimulation. That's why distractions feel good. That's why scrolling, snacking, checking and quitting have become the norm. They're easy. They give you quick relief. But they take more than they give. They cost you focus, they drain your momentum, and they keep you from building the kind of discipline that lasts. You don't need to escape boredom. You need to face it and work through it. Because what's on the other side isn't just progress, it's proof that you no longer need instant pleasure to stay committed. Every time boredom shows up, your habits are tested. Will you keep doing the work, or will you run to something easy just to feel busy? That choice defines your direction. Because the work that matters most is almost always repetitive. It's the same daily effort, the same structure, the same push, and the more you avoid it, the more you delay your results. There is no shortcut around this. If you want to build something solid, whether it's your mindset, your business, your body, your skills, you must become the kind of person who can do the work even when it's dull. You can't rely on excitement to keep you going. You have to train yourself to stay focused even when it's boring. That's the edge. That's what most people don't develop. They keep chasing new ideas, new plans, new hacks. But nothing sticks because they never sit still long enough to build mastery. They give up too soon. Not because they're not capable, but because they let boredom control their behavior. That's a weakness you must overcome. The way you win is by sitting with boredom and doing the work anyway. You don't argue with it. You don't complain about it. You accept it, and you keep moving. This is how high performers think. They don't expect everything to be exciting. They don't need a dopamine hit to stay committed. They've built the mental muscle of repetition. They understand that the most valuable work is often the most uneventful. Think about where your distractions come from. They usually show up when your brain is trying to avoid effort. When you hit a wall, and instead of pushing through, you reach for something easy. That's the moment you must become aware. That's the decision point, because every time you give in to a distraction, you're training your mind to escape discomfort. And the more you escape, the less resilience you build. It becomes a loop: boredom, distraction, guilt, and then starting over. You've got to break that loop. Not with more motivation, but with more awareness and discipline. You don't need to remove boredom. You need to redefine it. Boredom is not the enemy. It's a sign that you're on the edge of building something real. When things get boring, it means the process is working. It means you've moved beyond the excitement phase, and now you're in the development phase. That's where most of the real work happens. But only if you stay with it.
The strongest minds aren't the ones that never get bored. They're the ones that keep going, despite it. They've trained themselves to follow the routine, to trust the system, to stick to their commitments, even when the thrill is gone. And that's what separates them. Because everyone feels the urge to quit. Everyone feels the pull of easy, but very few learn how to sit in boredom without reaching for a distraction. You won't find freedom in constant stimulation. You'll find it in learning how to be steady, in learning how to work without needing to be entertained. That's a powerful shift. You become less reactive. You stop jumping from one thing to another. You begin to think clearly. You start to finish what you start. And that consistency leads to something bigger than results. It leads to self-control. You'll never have full control over your environment. You'll always have access to distraction. Your phone will always be nearby. Noise will always be around. People will always have demands. But you can train your mind to focus through all of it. You can train your mind to sit in silence and keep going. That's a skill. It's rare, but you can build it. And when you do, everything else becomes easier. Because your attention no longer gets hijacked every time things slow down. One of the most underrated skills in life is the ability to stay locked in on a task when you'd rather be doing something else. That skill will take you further than talent, further than ambition. Because while others are quitting and restarting, you're still there. You're still building. You're still making progress. That kind of consistency adds up fast. It becomes your advantage. If you keep quitting every time something gets dull, you'll never grow. That's the truth. Growth comes from depth, not just variety. And you can't go deep if you're always switching. If you always need something new to stay focused, you'll always be starting over. Stop doing that to yourself. Set a plan, stick to it. And when boredom creeps in, recognize it for what it is, a test, and then pass it. When you push through boredom, you take your power back. You no longer depend on outside things to drive your behavior. You rely on your own choice, your own direction. That's what makes you powerful. You stop letting boredom dictate what you do. You decide. You stay locked in. And that decision, repeated enough times, turns into identity. You become someone who finishes, someone who stays focused, someone who doesn't chase every shiny distraction. It's not always easy. There will be times when everything in you wants to stop. Your mind will whisper that it's not working, that it's too slow, that you should try something else. That's the lie. The work is working. The boredom means you've crossed the threshold, and if you push through it, you'll find the clarity, the strength and the depth that only comes from staying the course. Learn to be still. Learn to sit with the work. Learn to finish what you start. That's the kind of mindset that builds long-term results. It's not flashy. It's not loud, but it's solid. And in a world that's constantly distracted, that kind of focus makes you unstoppable. So the next time boredom shows up, don't panic. Don't run. Pause. Take a breath. Remember why you started. Then keep going. You don't need to feel entertained. You need to feel committed. Stay in the work long enough to see it through. Let other people chase stimulation. Let them jump from one thing to the next. You stay right where you are. Locked in. Focused. Unshaking. Because while they're starting over again, you'll be finished. While they're distracted, you'll be done. And that's the difference. That's the edge. The one who pushes through boredom without chasing easy distractions is the one who wins long term. Chapter 10. Repeat the work until your identity starts changing. Change doesn't come from a one-time effort. It comes from repeating the work long enough that your mind starts to believe it's who you are. It's not about hype. It's not about a single win. It's about becoming someone different, someone stronger, someone focused, someone who doesn't break when life gets hard. But that only happens when you show up every day and do what matters, whether you feel like it or not. Identity doesn't shift through motivation. It shifts through repeated behavior that proves to your brain again and again, this is what I do now. This is who I am becoming. Most people want to feel like a winner before they put in the work. But the truth is, you won't feel like one until you've done the work consistently. And you can't fake that. You can't pretend your way into confidence. You build it by doing the hard things over and over until your default behavior changes. You used to avoid the hard things, now you face them. You used to delay, now you start. You used to break promises, now you keep them. But that only becomes true when your actions are no longer based on emotion, they're based on standards. At first it feels forced. You have to push yourself. You have to remind yourself. The old version of you will try to pull you back into old habits. That version is familiar, comfortable, but you didn't start this journey to stay the same. You started because something inside of you knew you were made for more. And now you're here, doing the work, and every time you repeat it, every rape, every task, every choice, you get further away from who you were and closer to who you're meant to be. Change isn't dramatic, it's subtle. You won't wake up one day feeling like a new person. It happens gradually. You'll start noticing how you handle pressure differently, how you speak to yourself when you're tired, how you no longer give in when it gets hard. That's identity change. It's internal, quiet, but powerful. You've trained yourself into a new mindset, not by thinking differently, but by acting differently, long enough that it becomes automatic. Every time you do the work, whether that's showing up on time, finishing what you start, sticking to your plan, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. You're reinforcing a message. I can do this. I don't quit. I stay focused. And if you do that long enough, those actions become your identity. You no longer have to try to be disciplined. You are disciplined. You no longer have to try to stay consistent. It's just what you do. But that kind of change doesn't happen overnight. It's earned. And it's only earned through repetition. People struggle with identity because they wait for their mindset to change before they act. But that's backwards. You act first. You move first. You repeat the work until the mindset catches up. It's in the repetition that confidence is built. It's in the repetition that doubt fades. Because now you're not talking about becoming better. You're living it. You're proving it through your behavior. You no longer need to convince yourself. You have proof. And the longer you stay with the work, the stronger that identity becomes. It starts to feel strange not to follow through. It starts to feel off when you break your rhythm. That's when you know the shift is real. When the old habits no longer feel normal. When doing the right thing isn't just a struggle. It's the new standard. That's what you're working toward. And it only happens by showing up again and again and again, until your identity aligns with your actions. You're not trying to create a short-term streak. You're building a life, one that doesn't collapse every time pressure shows up, one that doesn't depend on motivation or emotion, one that is built on personal integrity, and that integrity is only created through action. You have to repeat the work even when results are invisible, even when the progress is slow, because that's when the biggest changes are happening, not on the outside, but inside you. The people who change their lives are not the ones who get it perfect every time. They're the ones who keep going when it's boring, when it's hard, when no one is cheering. They keep doing what needs to be done, because they've committed to becoming someone better, and that commitment is stronger than comfort. Stronger than excuses. That's who you want to become. Not someone who needs constant energy to perform, but someone who performs because it's who they are now. There's no limit to how far you can go when you stop needing the process to feel exciting. Repetition might feel boring on the surface, but it's where the magic happens. It's where your new self gets built, brick by brick, choice by choice. The outside world might not notice at first, but you'll feel it in the way you walk, in the way you handle setbacks, in the way you show up when nobody's watching, because the real goal was never to impress anyone. It was to transform into someone you're proud to be. And that transformation doesn't require talent. It doesn't require luck. It requires daily commitment. It requires you to keep showing up, especially when it would be easier to quit. You don't become disciplined by doing something once. You become disciplined by doing it again and again, until your mind learns. This is how we live now. No more second guessing, no more delays, just clear action. Every day. You might not see the change right away, but that doesn't mean it's not working. The roots grow before the fruit appears. You have to trust the process long enough to see what's possible. You have to give it more than a few good days. You have to give it your full effort, consistently, until the change isn't just what you're doing, it's who you've become. You don't just want new results, you want to become the kind of person who naturally gets those results. That means building habits that match your future. That means practicing your values until they become your behavior. It's not fake it till you make it. It's repeat it until you are. That's the truth most people miss. Repetition rewires your brain. It creates new patterns, and once those patterns are strong enough, they run on their own. That's when momentum kicks in. That's when confidence builds itself. You are capable of becoming someone unrecognizable to your past self. Someone who doesn't get shaken by doubt. Someone who doesn't stop at the first sign of resistance. Someone who lives with clarity and moves with intention. But you don't get there by hoping. You get there by showing up every single day, doing what matters, and repeating it without needing a reward every time. This isn't about chasing perfection. It's about building reliability, becoming someone you can count on. And that only happens when you hold the line, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when it doesn't feel like it's paying off, because the reward isn't just the goal. It's the kind of person you become by sticking with it. There will be days when you question the process, when you wonder if it's working, when you feel like giving in. But those days don't mean the process is broken. They mean it's working. They mean you're in the middle of the shift. Stay with it. Keep showing up. Keep repeating the work until you wake up one day and realize you're no longer trying to become disciplined. You are. And that change is yours. Nobody can take it from you, because you earned it, through every quiet decision, through every small action, through every moment you showed up, even when it felt pointless. That's how transformation really happens, and now it's yours to protect. Keep going, repeat the work, until the person you've always wanted to be is the person you already are.